All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Is supply chain visibility the key to success in 2023? Before we begin, let's cover a few housekeeping items. On your screen, you will see a sidebar to the right of the main stage. If at any time you need assistance during the live webinar, please message us in the help chat located on the sidebar. You can ask questions through the Q&A tab throughout the webinar, and your questions will only be visible to you and our Flexport team. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as time allows, and a copy of the presentation slides will be dropped in the chat. Here is the link to today's slides. Finally, an on-demand version of this webinar will be available shortly after the webinar concludes and can be accessed using the same link you are using now. A brief legal note. Please keep in mind that all the information provided in this session is based on the situation at this current time and may not be customized to your specific business requirements. We always recommend reaching out to a Flexport expert to discuss your particular situation. Now, let's move on to the introductions.
All right, thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. I'm Ece, and I'm a Client Solutions Manager at Flexport, based in our Amsterdam office. Throughout my years at Flexport, I've been helping our clients grow and optimize their work by providing visibility into their supply chains. If I think about the many client interactions I had during my plus 5 years at Flexport, I realize that visibility has always been a topic that comes up during business reviews, client calls, or basically in almost all interactions I have with my clients. Therefore, I'm very excited to discuss this widely popular topic with Nick today. What about you, Nick?
Thanks, Ece. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick, Sales Acceleration Manager at Flexport, also based out of our Amsterdam office. My role is to help our teams land and expand across Europe and ensure we have uniformity in our sales approach. Spent the last 5.5 years at Flexport speaking and consulting with clients to understand their wider supply chain needs and what the benefits of having accurate data really means to their business. The one common denominator that's always come up in these conversations was visibility. Visibility takes many different forms. At its basic, it relates to shipment milestones, but I think it goes way beyond just having a window into your ETDs, your ETAs, arrival, cleared and delivered. Actually being able to see your SKUs in transit, tie them to a delayed shipment, or perhaps prioritize them for expedited transit are proven valuable from a financial as well as a stock flow point of view. My goal today is for you to walk away from this webinar with questions and ideas about how best to tackle the headwinds we'll face in 2023 by getting better control and visibility in your supply chain, and perhaps even start working on refining some parts of that now.
Thanks, Nick. Now, time for a poll from the audience. All right, so let me quickly read through the poll. Which area of your supply chain would benefit from improved visibility? SKU inventory level, origin pre-departure, destination arrival, delivery planning, in-transit delays, and schedule reliability. So I'll give you a few seconds to answer. While you answer this poll, I wanted to give you some insight on the client conversations I had in the past weeks, where I actually asked the same question. And interestingly, 3 main areas were a tie in the top spots: SKU inventory level, destination arrival, in-transit delay, and schedule reliability. And it seems like from the poll, Nick, we're kind of seeing a similar pattern, especially with SKU inventory level and transit delays reliability.
Okay, so I think maybe I'll comment on the SKU and inventory level, and you can perhaps take the transit delays because it's kind of almost tied. I think it's not surprising that SKU and inventory level visibility has come sort of high up in that poll. We will discuss this in more detail later, so that's pretty handy. But I just think with a gloomy economic outlook, I'm really not surprised having control of your inbound stock flow and therefore your working capital in transit is going to be important next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the transit delays and reliability side, again, comes in quite handy, as we will talk about that later on too. But I think in the end, everyone would like to know when they're going to receive their goods, and if there are any changes to the ETAs for those timelines. A delay can have a butterfly effect on the full supply chain for our own clients, for our clients' clients. So definitely makes sense.
Cool. Let's get into things then.
All right, perfect. So today we will be addressing the topic of visibility, an extensive topic that lies at the center of many business discussions. In a broad sense, almost as a textbook definition, we can describe supply chain visibility as the ability to track raw materials, parts, components, or products from the manufacturer to the final destination. Sounds easy, right? Almost like a straight line. Not in reality when we consider all the different parties involved and all of the external factors that have an impact on supply chains. From the moment when your order is placed at the supplier to when it reaches to the final destination, there could be more than 10 parties involved, which puts a constraint on visibility. On top of the complexities caused by the various different parties and factors involved in a given supply chain, in the past 2 years, the pandemic also added an additional layer of difficulty.
Absolutely. It definitely did. I think everyone can relate to that. What additional constraints are we talking about here, Etcha?
Yep, I can elaborate on that. So, pre-pandemic, there was clarity around expectations on vessel schedules and performances. Therefore, businesses were able to estimate when they would receive their goods and they could plan accordingly. Pre-pandemic, you would know which schedule you're booking against, with which carrier, against which rate. You would have a longer term indication of how the market will perform. For instance, you would know that the first half of the year would be slower than the second half of the year. Q4 would be when ports start to get very congested, space becomes scarce, and rates start to climb up. However, now we're seeing a world upside down. With the pandemic, we've seen many overnight decisions taken by the governments that affected the supply chains globally. For instance, China's zero tolerance COVID policy had regularly led to lockdowns of critical logistics hubs, such as Ningbo, Shanghai, and Yantian. And if you take the Shanghai port closure, for instance, the port operations almost came to a stop with an overnight decision that affected the biggest seaport in the world. Many importers had to get very creative about moving their goods to different ports in China, which means that clients needed to act extremely fast to adapt their supply chains to an ever-changing market. Today, and as we plan head into 2023, running an agile supply chain is still one of the keys for success, and visibility plays a crucial role in this. And with that, we will mostly focus on two areas of the supply chain to discuss visibility today: SKU inventory level visibility and transit time destination visibility.
Great. SKU visibility, I think, is an important topic, particularly as all economic signs are pretty negative right now. Too often, I've spoken with clients who are either over or under stock, which ultimately eats away at their margins and at capital. And so, as we do head into economic uncertainty, getting a grip on your stock will be crucially important. So, let's start with SKU and inventory level visibility. So, I think having visibility at shipment level is great, but what customers really want to know is what stock is in the consignment. By having an instant view of the products in your supply chain, where they are in the network, how many units are in transit, then you can really start to visualize and think about your supply chain more as an inventory chain and not just purchase orders and containers, but really thinking about the products that are moving. In a volatile and uncertain world, such as the one that we currently find ourselves in with declining demand, high inventories, soaring inflation, I think having trust and confidence in real-time data on your products that are ordered, booked, and in transit will really enable businesses to make more informed decisions when it comes to demand planning and tying that back to constantly shifting consumer behavior. Having a clear picture on your inventory position really will be vital in 2023.
Great. And I think we all agree that the outlook is uncertain. How can we create some certainty in an uncertain world?
Yeah, I always like to ask the question to customers, how well did you deal with inventory imbalances in the past? Do you find certain lines are currently out of stock, or do you currently have too much stock on certain SKUs? I think having a clear and accurate picture through good data, not merely relying on anecdotal updates, will greatly improve a company's ability to demand plan effectively. I think typically when an importer has some level of shipment visibility and they're notified of a delay by their provider, then the next question they ask is which SKUs are in this consignment. This can then trigger a few different actions. For most, it's the action of cross-referencing the delayed container number with that purchase order, then going into your ERP software or planning tool to check on what stock is related to that purchase order to then determine if the delay will have a business impact. For instance, will this delay mean we might actually miss a customer order? I think what tends to happen for most businesses is that a delay to certain SKUs will impact the wider organization. The action for most clients is to update their ERP with the latest estimated delivery date they've been provided. Some companies actually have to painstakingly add this data manually at a line item level, which can obviously be prone to human error. Then what happens, I think, is internal teams then use this date as their source of truth to get visibility on which SKUs are due to arrive into the warehouse. However, because the data is not live or perhaps not accurate, it can indeed give an inaccurate or incorrect picture. I think like in today's upside down world, as you mentioned, Etcha, it could mean that ERPs are updated daily or even several times a day, which really poses the question, how do wider teams, such as maybe merchandise or customer service, like how do they keep track of the most recent update to a shipment? When is my product actually due to be delivered to the warehouse? And when can I tell my customer the stock will be ready for dispatch? I think questions like these require trust in the data. And to get that trust, the data ultimately needs to be accurate. So often, businesses receive this data in a spreadsheet that's either incorrect or outdated. And when they try to mitigate, they've missed crucial hours due to not getting the exception in real time. This can lead to stockouts, so no sales or missed customer orders, or it can lead to overstocking if the wrong inventory was prioritized, meaning more working capital is tied up. Margins are definitely going to be tight in 2023, so getting the right stock at the right time will be super important. I think currently companies have too much inventory on their hands. Demand is dropping. I think the question is, what are businesses doing about it? I spoke to Shelley Swift, shout out to Shelley, who I see is on the webinar, who's supply chain manager at Closer Pets. Spoke to her recently and sort of asked her what was her biggest supply chain concern going into 2023. And I think her answer really relates to inventory positioning in order to have a positive cash flow. So if you're wondering like what is inventory position? So your inventory position is basically the sum of your on order and in transit inventory plus your current inventory level in your warehouses. Having a stable inventory position that matches both your present and future demand is key. Right now, stock is stacked in warehouses around the world and demand is falling, which means retailers are initiating sales and discounting strategies. Therefore, demand planning should be very receptive to this changing macroeconomic environment. Think of your premium product range. Will that remain in 2023 or will consumer spending shift? Will there be a surge in sales in your value range? If so, how does the demand forecast tie in with your on-order inventory? If you need to slow down or speed up stock, can you? With Flexport, our customers can see exactly what's on order, what's booked, and what's moving. So Etcha, as a client solutions manager with lots of customers, do you have a real example recently where a client has either slowed down or sped up specific inventory or purchase orders?
Yeah, absolutely. We are actually seeing this a lot recently. So where I have been seeing the real life impact of purchase order, or in short, the PO management recently, is with our e-commerce brands. Our e-commerce brands have been heavily utilizing the PO management to see which products are in demand, make decisions on which orders to expedite and which orders to delay. Just last week, actually, I had one of my clients, a fashion brand, change their full container shipment with Black Friday orders to air shipment as their experiencing production delays with their main supplier in China. The supplier was able to communicate this change through our client, to our system, and our client was able to act fast and plan for moving the goods via air instead.
Got it. Thank you. So having an excess of stock on order and in transit with a declining demand position right now in Q4 and heading into 2023 could indeed be worrying. Our advice is to work really closely with your internal stakeholders to realize what is the most important inventory that needs to move. Having good forecasts and a true finger on the pulse for your on order and in transit inventory will be crucial to success next year when demand may remain volatile. So general theories from boardrooms at the moment suggest that actually demand forecasting this year has been poor, hence the high inventories we're seeing. This leads to discounting, with around a third of companies bringing inventory forward because of stockouts in previous years. And this all plays into the need for good inventory visibility. How oversupplied am I? If I stop shipping right now, what happens if in Q1 demand picks up? Will I be short on stock? Getting the balance right on your stock is super difficult. So as this chart shows, over the course of the past decade, inventory took on a more prominent discussion than supply chain in boardrooms and at exec levels. This obviously all changed when COVID hit, that put supply chain crisis on everybody's radar. When consignments were not moving, when companies literally could not get their stock in, attention shifted from focusing on inventory to supply chain challenges. And from early 2021 until very recently, the supply chain was top of mind. But at the end of the chart that you can see, that trend is now reversing. Since Q3 of this year, supply chain challenges have somewhat remedied from the chaos they were last year. So I think now the boardroom talk is back to inventory, which is fine. But for me, the learning here is to really understand that supply chain volatility does still exist.
Yeah, that is very interesting insight, Nick. So what does this mean for 2023?
I think the conclusion here is that inventory and supply chain topics are not binary. I think it's crucial to focus on both and try as best as you can to harmonize them. Our industry is inherently unstable, deeply tied to macroeconomic events. Therefore, you really need to know what your demand forecast is. What are your current sales metrics? What stock is in your warehouse? Honestly, that's the easy part. What you then need to solve for is what inventory is in motion, what's getting delivered this week, how accurate is that arrival date, and how does that impact my inventory position? Getting control of this all the way back through the chain will help you plan your stock position and benefit your working capital. I think there are many factors contributing to economic uncertainty, but if you're sailing in the fog, you at least want to know which direction you're heading. So having visibility on shipments and inventory, having data you can trust, will allow you to better chart your course in these choppy waters ahead. Ultimately, all an importer wants to know is, where is my stock and is it going to be in my warehouse for when I need it to be? In the next part, I'll show you a quick demo of how Flexport customers can answer that question. Okay, so in just over a minute, I'm going to show you how Flexport as a tool can give you SKU level visibility. So first, there's this exception module here. By hovering over the shipment information, clients are seeing the purchase order, but also the SKU information. But typically, in order to surface inventory data, clients will come to the search bar, they will type in the SKU in question, and Flexport will instantly show all of the shipments that have that product in. You are also not going to remember thousands of SKUs. So with Flexport's intuitive data, you can also type in a product description and the same will happen. So I've typed in leather belt because I need to find information on this piece of inventory. And Flexport is showing me 3 shipments with this product in. I scroll to the bottom. I see here that I have 2,377 units across 5 active shipments. Going deeper, I can get into more granular detail. And here we are showing the product information with some custom and shipment attributes. And by clicking into shipments, it will show all of the shipments that has this individual product in. So here I can see that I have several shipments with the women's leather belt. I have 500 units I see the origin, the destination, and it will also confirm the exact delivery date of that product. Okay, so I just showed you how in several seconds you can isolate a SKU, see how many units are in transit, and what that individual shipment's current status is. Now, what I'd like you to do is ask yourself, how would you go about finding your stock right now? How would you search for specific inventory and get a status check? But to answer those questions, there are also some other tools that can help there. I think purchase order management tools are a great way to give you visibility during manufacture and origin stage. It enables you to see purchase order status and give you a window to production milestones. Effectively, purchase order management allows you to answer the question, where is product X? How much of it do we have? And when will it be scheduled to arrive? And then the other side is the inventory management software. These types of tools can typically act as your North Star to look at your inbound stock from a forecasting and stocking warehouse point of view. I think the key for me here is to try and integrate this with your ERP for improved accuracy and reduce manual work. And then like bonus points, if you can have your freight forwarder also integrate with your ERP to give you full control on your procure to pay cycle.
Yeah, so it seems like there are clearly some quick fixes that can be used to enable more control over your incoming inventory and also your products that are still in production phase. So that's great. Leading into 2023, though, can you give some insight into how having better inventory control can help in the next year?
Sure. I think what's top of most people's mind for 2023 from a macroeconomic point of view is the uncertainty out there. You know, uncertainty is pretty much the single biggest contributing factor leading to recession, and recessions are entrenched by weak consumer demand. When you have weaker demand, you have less sales. Less sales means you have to more accurately manage your stock flow and cash flow.
Got it. So you can have a better match between your demand and supply of products by using tools to give you accurate SKU visibility, which will help with sales and cash flow.
Exactly. Etcha, maybe it's time move on to discussing destination and transit time visibility a little more.
Yes, agreed. Let's do that. But actually, so we've been first tackling the concept of SKU and inventory level visibility and how reliable and searchable data is key to balancing product supply and inventory demand. So now that we've discussed this portion in depth, now we can actually move on to the second piece of the puzzle, transit time and destination visibility. But before going into depth, let's actually begin with a poll. All right, so I'll read the poll again. When you think about transit time, destination visibility, what is your source of truth? Forwarder portal or website, carrier website, terminal's website, or internal tools and reports? All right, looks like we have a very solid tie between the forwarder portal and the carrier website. Interesting.
Oh, there we go. I mean, I could probably comment here, Etcha, more, you know, when I joined Flexport 5.5 years ago, it was pretty much at the start when forwarders started building more technology and having portals. So I think my first initial observation is it's great that more than 53% of people are using some form of visibility and technology out there. The carrier website, there's varying degrees of how accurate individual carriers are on certain trades in terms of to get the accuracy. I think the one thing for me there is that forwarder and carrier is the top two, and you're essentially doing duplicate work. So make sure you have, coming back to my point earlier about trusting the data, try not to use both a carrier website and a forwarder. You're doing 2 times work. Really trust or work with a forwarder or a portal or a website that really just give you that accurate data that you're looking for. And also interesting terminals aren't being used. I know back in the day, they were kind of the source of truth for most people. So that's definitely been depreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I can only echo what you said earlier, Nick. Actually, I really like that a lot of people from our audience is actually looking at the forwarder portal and website, at least have that one source of truth. But yeah, definitely agreed on that.
Cool.
All right. So let's move on. So when we think about transit time and destination visibility, one thing that all my clients say without exception is, I want to know where my goods are at a given time, and I want to know when I will receive them. This sounds fairly simple when put into words, right? However, in reality, it's actually quite challenging. And there are a couple of reasons why. So I would like to approach what impacts transit time and destination visibility actually in two parts. So part one is market conditions. And we briefly discussed this in our intro. As much as we try to avoid the direct impact of external factors in our supply chain, there's unfortunately no way to avoid the impact of market conditions on businesses. Take the pandemic, for instance. It has been a challenge to provide transit time visibility and accuracy since the start of the pandemic in 2022. On the right-hand side, you are seeing our ocean timeliness indicator. And if we look at the ocean timeliness indicator, we see a drastic increase in the ocean transit times, both on Asia to US and Asia to Europe trades since the start of the pandemic. It has been quite challenging to have an accurate estimate on when the goods will be received at the end destination, which requires the businesses to switch to a model where they work with longer lead times. And an importer who had 50 to 60 days of lead time in their planning actually had to change that to 100 and 120 days. That's double the time if you think about it. And you combine this with schedule reliability of the carriers being at historic lows, then you end up with a global supply chain that has an extreme constraint on visibility. Now, if we move on to part two, part two is the processes and tools companies have to manage their supply chains. We live in a modernized world surrounded by technology. However, if we actually look at how supply chains are managed today, we still see a lack of digitization and technology. Many conversations are still handled through long email threads, and many businesses still keep track of their shipments and/or orders through Excel sheets. The external factors mentioned in part one will unfortunately always be there. Part two, however, is where companies can transform their supply chains to their advantage and mitigate the effects of external factors on their businesses.
Before moving on to the solutions, do you have examples of what is the impact of not having visibility?
Yeah, absolutely. I can share a bit more on that. So, due to lack of visibility, we are actually seen many companies having difficulties with inventory management, delivery planning, warehouse planning, basically almost all aspects of their supply chains. Depending on the line of business, we have also seen many clients, especially on the fashion side or e-commerce companies, struggling with their product launches. There were instances where product launches had to be pushed out, which of course had serious financial impact. So now that we talked about what we mean by transit time and destination visibility, what are the factors impacting this, and what happens if you lack visibility, we would like to now focus more on the specifics and how different tools can help improve visibility. All right, so let's start by taking a look at real life examples to put things into context. So I want to talk about one of our clients, Ergobaby. Ergobaby is one of our clients in Europe, is a fast-growing baby products company that has more than 10 suppliers spread across China, India, and Vietnam. And in addition to the complexities of running a global supply chain, Ergobaby's product launches are closely tied to the cargo arrival dates, which makes it key to have real-time visibility into shipments and know when the goods will exactly arrive at the destination.
Okay, so what was the issue Ergobaby were facing to start with, Etcha?
Yeah, great question. And very straightforward, really. Something that we see with many other companies, lack of digitization in their supply chain. Still today, many companies rely on manual processes to track the status of their orders. Lack of streamlined communication and the need to manually update the status of orders if there are any changes to the cargo ready dates, ETAs, or any shipment milestones you can think of makes this process highly inefficient and prone to errors. So, how can companies transform their supply chains to achieve end-to-end visibility and improve delivery timelines, which will be extremely crucial as we're heading into 2023. There are a few steps businesses can take in order to have better control over their supply chains. So, moving from email threads and Excel sheets to one centralized platform that can bring suppliers, consignees, and all other parties involved together is a great first step in achieving supply chain visibility. Having one platform as the source of truth for any supply chain related activities enables companies to streamline communications and have an end to end view from when an order is placed at the supplier to when it's delivered at the final destination. This is especially important when planning for 2023, as having real-time visibility into your global logistics network is key to achieving success in an uncertain market. Now, if we go back to the Ergobaby example, we have seen that real-time visibility and real-time reporting has enabled Ergobaby to better coordinate for product launches, have faster time to market for online products, while having a transparent overview of the exceptions. By bringing technology into its supply chain, Ergobaby was able to achieve 100% improved planning reliability and actually save 2 to 3 days on the delivery timelines.
Cool. Thanks for that, Etcha. Okay, so we're drawing to the close on this webinar, but before we do, we have some great insights from Supply Chain Director Louis Goldman at Cloud9 Hair. This is a pre-recording of a quick fireside chat I had with him last week. Hope you enjoy.
My name is Louis Goldman. I'm the Supply Chain Operations Director at Cloud9 Hair. Cloud9 is a global company that supplies hair care and beauty products at the more premium end of the market. So we operate in multiple countries such as Germany, Italy, Australia, and New Zealand and the UK, and work closely with Flexport on the supply chain to get the products there from our manufacturing site in South Korea.
What does visibility mean to you?
Quite often, especially in our industry, is the easy answers often the right answers, often the answers that people don't look for. It's just having a very clear picture and having it supported by data that you can trust. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges at this moment of time.
What's the main benefit of having accurate supply chain data?
It's just a level of confidence to put plans in place. So with anything, you can achieve your goal as long as you put enough buffers in stock. Like we luckily here at Cloud9, throughout the pandemic, did not run out of stock. Even though when there's massive supply chain delays, etc., we didn't run out of stock. We grew massively. Again, we had the stock available. One of the key reasons there is we made the decision to not get out of stock by having buffer stocks along the supply chain and in our local facilities in the UK and in other markets, which is obviously tying up cash. So if you have accurate data, you can plan that a lot more precise to then reduce your sort of tied up investment in stock or other facilities and elsewhere.
Which internal stakeholders or teams need or indeed rely on that kind of accurate data, and particularly that inventory and transit data?
To be fair, so far, every single one. Like I was going through my head. Yeah, marketing needs to know. Yeah, e-commerce needs to know. Yeah, obviously supply chain needs to know. Yeah, logistics needs to know because they need to know when it's arriving. Oh, customer service needs to know because they need to tell the customer if they ask when stock available again. So yeah, basically touches every single department because one way or another, we're all here to sell a product and to give a great customer experience, and having that supply chain data available and trustworthy.
Why is getting SKU level sort of visibility through the supply chain difficult for businesses?
Supply chain sounds so simple. You move a product from A to B. You put it in a container in China or somewhere else and it arrives and all good. And that was the case 10, 20 years ago. However, nowadays it's all about that reactiveness and being proactive as well at the same time to sort of being able to deal with any things that happen, but also things that you want to do and anticipate. So having that SKU level data is so crucial because you can, as I said before, you can plan it, touch every single one. However, I don't think every company has the same ethos on there. And by company, ourselves as retailers, but also as on your side, freight forwarders, the same. There's still a lot of let's call them traditional freight forwarders who literally move a box for you, and it's not good enough anymore to have that. So that's why we work with someone like yourselves, because we need SKU level data. We need to know exactly what is on that container and to what degree.
What's one piece of advice you can give to businesses to get a clearer window into their inventory?
Just put a real focus on it. I know it sounds, again, very simple, but I genuinely think companies see logistics and warehousing and inventory still as a pain point, as a cost. Oh, procurement has to just save some money each quarter or each year on the procurement. I think it needs to be looked at as a service department rather than a cost center.
Perfect. I actually really like the reference of, more data doesn't necessarily equal to visibility, but the accurate data and how that is actually represented within that organization is actually key to that visibility. All right. So we are actually at the end of our presentation. And to tie everything together, we discussed two different avenues of visibility today: product and shipment level. And the key takeaways are: actively think about how you can improve data accuracy and live SKU data, or perhaps where that visibility piece is missing. Then use this data to plan your demand better. Once this part is figured out, think about having a centralized view of your supply chain that will allow you to see where each of your shipments are at a glance and know when you will receive your products. And as a last step, aim for moving away from manual processes to data and technology driven processes that will provide you with real time updates. With all of these combined, you can plan for 2023 with more accuracy while creating visibility across your supply chain and navigate through the foggy weathers with success. All right, so we've spoken at you for almost 40 minutes and can imagine that you have a lot of questions. So let's actually move on to the fun part, Q&A. So please ask questions through the Q&A widget on the right, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can.
Okay, there's maybe one coming through here. So the question is, how does Flexport's technology help with visibility, and how accurate and which features are drivers of visibility? That's a good question. I hope it hasn't come from a competitor. So there's two ways we kind of receive the data. So we ingest your purchase order or SKU data at either the moment you transmit or upload a purchase order to us, or we do something called data scrape. We digitally extract all the information on your commercial invoice packing list, and the data on the platform matches that to your or the information your supplier inputs to shipments. Once we have basically that SKU and inventory data, we aggregate it in the system, which basically means it's searchable. So on that quick demo I did earlier, that's what allows you to key in a SKU or a product description and tie up to the shipment level. So to answer the question, like, how does it help with visibility? I think Flexport gives both shipment level from the moment it's booked with your supplier through to the moment it's delivered. So that sort of generic end-to-end visibility at shipment level. But I think more importantly, it gives you that inventory piece. It ties the inventory to the consignment, and it does it quickly. So I think if you want visibility of what have I ordered, where is my stock, or where is my shipment, you can do that in just a few clicks and sort of negate having to click through spreadsheets or multiple sources for that. Anything to add, Etcha?
Yeah, I can actually add more on the shipment milestone and transit time bit. So also as Flexport, we have multiple integrations with air and ocean carriers, terminals. We have automated scrapes of airlines and carrier websites. All of those actually allow us to provide real-time ETD, ETA updates on the platform. But I think what is more interesting and makes the data more reliable is actually the new product developments we have. So we have been testing this new product feature, the predictive transit times, out in our UK office, which turned out to be quite successful, actually. So basically, we look at the historic data, let's say 2 or 3 months of data on how port-to-port transit time is across different carriers, and then instead of actually just sticking with whatever transit time is provided at the time of booking, let's say a carrier might say, the port-to-port is 30 days. In reality, it might actually turn out to be 40 days. So we actually take this into account and then build a full-on schedule from there. And a very recent update, which I really like, that we have been testing with a few of my clients as well, is the historic schedule changes of each shipment. So basically what that means that this update provides you with a pop-up within the shipment schedule, and that flags the most recent schedule change to you. So that enables you to view the history of the date changes for each milestone. So you will actually have that visibility on that piece as well. And then it provides a timestamp and the source of each update. So this actually provides a more holistic view of transit time visibility.
Thanks, Etcha. There's a question from Josephine. Does Flexport also provide software for NVOs, container stock management, and cargo track and trace? No, but I do like that idea about doing container stock management. But no, we do not. Sorry. Okay, I'll read this out. I'm not sure if me or you take this, Etcha. Okay. How can the platform help to switch to relieved routes in the case of congested routes? Also with regards to domestic transport, e.g. in the case of overloaded railway lines. So I think that question is, like how do you switch to different routes if there's congestion? So if there's congestion in, say, Rotterdam, like how would you kind of navigate that? I'll let you answer that.
Yeah. So I think there are a few parts to that. So we have a team that is working in the back end. We call them the trade lane management team. They are actually almost on a daily basis see how different routes, how different carriers, how different ports are performing. So that information is actually getting feeded to us from our experts within Flexport on a regular basis. So if we see that there are certain, let's say, certain routes, certain ports that are quite congested, or, similar to what we have experienced with the COVID closures on the Shanghai side, for instance, we were actually able to coordinate with our teams based in China to reroute those shipments to different ports. So that information, I think, is available to us due to the global footprint that we have at this moment. On the domestic transport side, again, we have a good network of different carriers that we use. And if we look at our trucking team, we have a specific team that is actually focused on that domestic transport piece. And we are in, again, regular contact with them. So that market information is constantly being fed into the different teams across Flexport so that we can also give this information back to our clients.
Thank you. And we've got a couple more. I think there's one on ocean market development, Etcha.
Yeah.
Do you also maybe want to take that one?
Yes, definitely. I can take this one, Nick. And I think, that's a big question. But before actually moving on to what is the outlook for 2023, I actually do want to spend a bit of time on understanding 2022 or where we stand right now, because I think understanding what type of market we're in right now is crucial to understand where we are going. So if we look at 2022, where we are at right now, and I can give a quite specific example of the Golden Week, for instance, in October. Normally, historically, we would see a spike in demand and rates around Golden Week. If we look at how things progressed this year in 2022, we actually seen that the demand was not picking up, and rates even declined sharper after the Golden Week. So this is really a world upside down in that sense, in terms of the market. And how will this translate into 2023? We will have Chinese New Year at the beginning of 2023, for instance. And normally we would see a similar pattern of Golden Week as we're heading into Chinese New Year as well. We would normally expect that spike in demand and rates. However, we are not seeing that pattern right now. So actually, as we are heading into 2023, we're not necessarily seeing that downward trend going to anywhere anytime soon. And actually, I was talking to one of our trade lane managers recently about a bit more details in the market. And what stood out to me was also taking a more general look at the market and how it is getting developed. And it was looking at the market from the active fleet side. So he actually mentioned that, active fleet in the market has, increased since July 2022 till now. And almost added 1 million TEUs. So that, and the expectation is about 10% growth for that. However, if you look at how the container trade is growing globally, that's only around 1.3%. So this is definitely not at the same rate level. So the capacity will be there, but the demand is definitely not catching up with that. So basically what this means is that, we don't expect the rates to bounce back. How carriers will respond to this is still a bit of a question mark. I think that's one of the $1 million questions. But what we can say for sure for 2023 is that it's not going to be a normal year. So we really need to be careful on our projections because we cannot really use past years to benchmark. And that is why visibility is more important than ever.
Etcha, thanks. What about blank sailings? Question from me.
Yeah, good one. Well, the carriers actually have, if we look at the blank sailings, the carriers actually have been announcing blank sailings as per every year. So actually, if we look at that, nothing out of the ordinary. We are actually not seeing a massive blank sailing program, which what we would otherwise expect to see in order to stabilize the market. However, that is not the case. So we see that even with the huge decrease in terms of rates, blank sailings are not necessarily huge in numbers. Of course, still important figures to look at, but at least right now we are not seeing immediate impact. We will have to review this information as we are still doing right now, week over week, and we need to look at the market developments more dynamically.
Got it. Thank you. And I think this is the last question. How hard is it to start working and moving goods with Flexport? The answer is very easy. We can give you access after speaking to some of our account executives. It's literally takes 30 seconds to give you an account. It's super simple. So reach out to your dedicated sales representatives is what I would say. And I think that's it. So, and it's free of charge. Also, I should probably add, you don't have to pay to use the technology. Hey, everyone, thank you for joining. If you're in Northern Europe, the night's about to close in and be dark. So appreciate the engagement. I hope this was insightful. Etcha, any closing words?
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Like Nick mentioned, hope this was insightful and helpful, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Great. Thank you. And good luck for 2023.